Hello, everyone. This is Stacy. Welcome to The Landing. Welcome back to The Landing. In honor of Father's Day, today's episode is especially close to my heart. I'm sitting down with someone who has been a guiding light throughout my life, my dad. But today, we're not just talking to him. We're talking about the man who shaped him, his father, my grandfather, Henry Allen Davis. You'll hear stories of strength, hard work, laughter, and legacy. Memories passed down like treasured heirlooms. It's a conversation about the quiet lessons, the lasting impact, and the way a father's love lives on through generations. So settle in for a beautiful journey through time, family, and the deep down east roots that hold us together. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Landing. This is a very special episode to me in honor of the upcoming holiday, which is, of course, Father's Day. And as you all know, if you know me or if you've been listening to The Landing, you know that my dad has been a big part of this from the get-go. And he's been on a couple of times, but it's been a while. And so we were like, what are we going to do to honor my special dad? And so I have a very special guest. And who are you?
I'm Wayne Davis, still Wayne Davis, and I'll always be Wayne Davis from Hartford Island, North Carolina.
Yes, y'all, you're right. That's my dad. I had to drag him down here. He usually does give in after a little bit of resistance. That's been our routine since I was born. But I usually win, don't I, Daddy?
Yes, always, not usually, always.
Always. So I'm excited, though, because the first thing that we're going to talk about is something that I really I'm excited about sincerely, because I didn't know my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, very well because he passed away when I was only 6 years old. And I have sporadic memories, and a lot of my memories, I think, are also things that I've heard Dwayna and Tanya say or y'all talk about. And so, are you ready? Let's get started.
Yeah, we'll get started.
Daddy is going to tell us a little bit about his father, which of course is my grandfather. So if you will start with his name and his parents, and then we'll kind of get into some stories. Like, what was Granddaddy's name?
Yep, my daddy's name was Henry Allen Davis. And he was born, his mama was Mattie, and his daddy was Cleveland Davis. Mm-hmm. And they both of them was my mama's and my daddy's.
That's right.
Daddy, he was a very quiet man. He never did say a whole lot. But he always looked out for his family. He was always, and I've never heard him say anything bad about anybody. He was just quiet, and he was just, he was on his own way. He was a good man, very good man. He always looked out for his family. Number one was the main thing. I was born, we lived to Red Hill. That's on the western end of the island. And we moved from Red Hill when I was around 3 years old to a house, an old house we stayed in until we built a new house across from where the restaurant used to be, there across from the Fish Hook. And it took a while to do that, and we lived in this old house. And what I always tell people how old I am, when we moved out of that into the house across the street, when they got it finished, Miss Mabel and Fred Guthrie, she was a school teacher, and they lived at that time in a teacherage. And then when we moved out of the old house, they moved in that house. So I tell everybody that I lived in Mabel and Fred's house before they did. So everybody knew how old they were.
Because they were old.
Yeah. So anyway, we moved over there. And when my father had the fish house, I was got old enough, he would take me down to the fish house and would tend to me. Tried to tend to me anyway, but I wasn't very old. I know I don't remember a lot about it, but I was maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
And I remember one time, he always kept me in the fish house, and one day they were sitting, 2 or 3 other men were sitting right by the door so he could keep an eye on me that I wouldn't go outside. And some way I snuck outside and he didn't know it. And I got too close to the edge of the dock. And to the edge of the dock was real deep where it was, we call it a steamer hole, where they would dig it out so the big boats could get in there.
Uh-huh.
And I fell off the dock in that steamer hole.
Oh, me.
And I can remember a little bit about I would go down and I couldn't swim. I just flapped my arms as hard as I could, and I'd go down. And I saying like I remember I was going down 2 or 3 times, and I was even thinking about this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, a big splash on the side of me. And my daddy had heard me hollering, and he kind of jumped overboard and got me. And I remember him taking his wallet out and drawing his stuff that was in his wallet. He never said a bad thing about me or anything, just asked me if I was all right.
Oh, my goodness.
But he saved me that day.
So he jumped in, saved you, didn't fuss at you.
Not a one bit.
And then laid everything out, and that was in his wallet just to air dry.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't go back down there and do that anymore until I could swim. He made sure I didn't go outside until I could swim.
Wow.
My father would let me play in the fish house, like when he tended to my days, and always a lot of fish boxes and stuff in there. I can remember building me like a little camp, a little fort or something in there. I'll be in there by myself, had that big fish house so I could play and do things. And and I didn't go back outside anymore.
So you would stack them up and like build a fort.
Yeah, I would just play them, in there and play in there. And when I got old enough to work in the fish house, we would go swimming and stuff, and a boat would come in and we'd go up there and help at the fish house until when I graduated, I ran the fish house for a couple of years. When I was 12 years old, my father built me a little store, a fish market, at the foot of the dock by the fish house.
So it was right next. How far away was it?
It was to the other end of the dock, on the land side of the dock where it went ashore, and it was right there on the edge of the dock. And he built that for me when I was 12 years old and had me a little fish market. And I had stuff in there that people come into the boat, they wanted a loaf of bread or some cakes and drinks to take with them.
They'll take with them.
Yeah, they would do that.
So you would sell some of the catch that Granddaddy had in your market. You would sell fresh fish and fresh seafood.
Yeah, I had fresh seafood.
Yeah, but I mean, you would get it right from them.
I'd get it right from them, put it right in there. Yeah, and I didn't have a big business, but once in a while somebody would come down there.
Yeah,
and I was 13. I was about 14 years old. I would actually deliver fish down the road in my father's truck. I would go down and take it to different people.
Had your license?
I don't think I was supposed to be driving. But,
No.
But nobody didn't really care.
Yeah.
But I did that for a while too.
That's fun.
And I remember one time that Daddy always had a little boat. He had this one little aluminum boat. I remember one day that was down there, and me and my father, Mississippi was a guy that worked with my father. Everybody liked him. And for some reason, Daddy told me to take him for a ride or something. So we got in that boat, and we rode out, and there's another boat out there. A friend of ours, Kenny, was running a boat. So Kenny Willis. Yeah, he was running a boat. He had somebody in there with him, and we went alongside, and for some way, it was just come up. They wanted to race. So we said, we'll race you. So we started racing. The boats was about the same speed, side by side. One was no faster than the other. So I tell Mississippi, I said, I know how we can beat them. You come here and steer, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So he got back under steer, and they were still going. So I jumped overboard so the boat would be lighter, and he would go faster. And I'd bounce. You don't want to jump overboard going 30 miles an hour. I found that out real quick. Anyway, we lost the race because when I jumped out, the boat started loping. She started jumping up and down, and they went on wait and beat us. So I learned from that, but I didn't do it no more.
So you got hurt and lost.
I was badly hurt and lost. Yeah, yeah. And I remember another time. Me and my father. Every summer he would get a camp over to Way Shore, a German Holland owned a camp. And my father would get it over for a week every year, and the family would go there and stay. And I remember one time we come back to the island to get something that we needed for the camp, so I don't know, the food or whatever it was, just me and Daddy. And when we headed back, we got it back in the channel. The weather got real bad. Something really come up real bad. It was blowing 30, 40 mile an hour at least or more. But it was right in the channel on that little 16-foot boat with windshield and stuff on her. And it got so bad that we couldn't hardly move over 1 or 2 mile an hour. He'd put her right head into it so she wouldn't, because you wouldn't even think about turning it around.
Yeah.
And the water was coming up, busting, coming over the windshield on us. And I got real scared that day, but Daddy knew what he was doing, kept going until we got in shallow water. Mm-hmm. And I felt like he maybe saved us that day too, because he knew what he was doing, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But
oh my goodness.
But that was another time.
But you completely trusted him. I mean, like you knew that he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
That's how I always felt about my daddy too, by the way.
Yeah. But anyway, another thing that I remember about my dad, he would, it was 3 or 4 years in a row there, he would take me to Madam Mesquite on goose hunting. And he had a couple of friends that would take their kids along too, and they would go, and we would spend the night. And the next day we would go out in the cornfields, and we would goose hunt. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had, last year we hunted, I had an old single barrel that I got one Christmas, that first gun I ever had. I took that, and my daddy handed me his Browning. And I killed the goose, and I shot it with that Browning. That was his automatic, his gun. Uh-huh. And that's the time that I killed a goose, and then Kenny was with us, and he said that he killed the goose. We got in an argument, and the boy, that was another boy with us, said, well, you quit arguing, both of you killed a goose. so anyway, about that, I had my father's gun after that, and I've always hunted with that gun right on up until I quit hunting, pretty much.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And another thing I remember about my father, too, around the 4th of July, they always have a pony penning. Mm-hmm. And he would always take me over to that pony penning. And that's when they would run the horses from out of the woods down the way shore, and they would run them down towards the eastern end of the Shackford. Mm-hmm. And it was 2 different gangs of horses over there. And what we enjoyed doing, watching them, when they would run them, they had to get up and walk all that way through them woods and run them horses out of the woods down there. And there were 2 different gangs, and the leaders of them gangs, they would always fight like crazy, because they didn't want to be together, Yeah. But they would brand the colts, because the people on the island owned the horses, and the only way they could tell every year like that, they would, if their mother had a colt, they would brand the colts, because they knew that the mother had been branded, and they could tell who they were. Uh-huh. And I remember 2 different times my father bought me a pony over there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And one of them was named Rawbones, and one of them was named Beetlebum. But I never did. They'd get big enough to ride. I think I kept them away. That's hard. I won't let someone else have them.
Rawbones.
Rawbones and Beetlebum.
Beetlebum.
Yeah.
Wow. So you tied them down in the boat to bring them to the island?
Yeah, they would take them and lay them down in the skiff, and tie their legs and stuff, and bring them back. Mm-hmm. Because later on, I told you, right, remember the one I had that later years there that kicked me on the leg.
I do remember that one.
I carried him back to the bank, put him back.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I do too.
I was little,
I
but
won't tell you about the sardine deal.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Anyway, my father had a store down on the corner where now is Fish Hook, but back there it was right where you turn down and go to the Ferry Dock Road, where Captain's Choice Restaurant used to be. He had a store there, and he had gas and groceries and stuff there. A lot of people don't remember he had a car lot behind it. He had 15 or 20 cars. The only car lot there was on the island.
Oh, wow.
And he had him right there. And I wasn't very old. I was like 14 when he had it, probably around that age. And I took one of them cars. I told him it was mine. And I took and kept that thing waxed, and I just drive up and down the Ferry Dock Road all the time in my car. He never saw. I bet let him sell that car. He didn't sell many, nobody, I don't think. But anyway.
And he was fine with it. He said, okay.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I remember one thing, if I was going to work or ever going to do anything to him, he'd always say, just be careful. That was one of the things that he would say. When I was 15 years old, my father had groceries, and he had a old truck, and he told me to deliver some groceries to the eastern end of the island. And I did. I put them in there, and I took them, headed to the eastern end, and it was raining, and carried them down there and put them out. And coming back just before we got to Lena's Curve, most people know where that is, I passed a highway patrolman. And I kept on going and went on to the store and pulled in front of the store. And when I got out, the highway patrolman pulled out on the side of me. And he kind of waved in a little bit and said, "Come here to my office." Well, I went to his office, which was his car. Anyway, he asked me, he said, "Is this your truck?" I said, "No." He said, "Whose is it?" I said, "It's my father's." He said, "Does he know you got it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I won't get you for stealing her then." I said, "That didn't start out very good." But anyway, he said, "Let me see your license." "I don't have any." "How old are you?" "I'm 15. He said, "Okay, I know I can check that one off." And then he wrote down on it was hazardous weather conditions. He wrote me a ticket and wrote my father a ticket. I go inside and hand them to my father.
Were you scared? Were you scared?
I was not scared, not one bit. But my father, what was on the tickets was no license, underage, hazardous weather conditions, running 85 and a 35.
Were you going that fast?
85 and a 35.
Daddy.
So the cop, he didn't like it very much, I don't reckon. But I went around the counter. Daddy was standing there heavy and watching me out the window. And
he let you do it.
And this is the way Daddy was. I mean, he just when I went down, he put his hand out. I put him in his hand. He didn't say not one word. He said, when I handed him to him, he said, "You didn't have to be so big a hurry." He didn't even look at the ticket and know I was speeding. It just said, "You didn't have to be so big a hurry." He tore them up and put them in a trash can. And that was the last I ever heard of that.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was 15 years old.
15.
Can you believe that? I don't believe I was going that fast.
You know what? I love that story, but I love that he watched you through the window and let you do it, let you go through all that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's a hard thing sometimes for parents to let the kid.
Well, they probably would have locked him up.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Maybe he was looking out for himself. But no, I love that he was doing that.
Well,
Let you learn.
Well, he was even that. I've told you this before. Even my father knew a lot of people in the right places, I guess, because it was time. It's not like it is nowadays. Like the time I probably told you before, that it was down to the fish house, and he wanted me to go and get a bag of lime to the store for one of the boats needed. They used it to put it on their nets to keep their nets, from rotting. And then we go to get in the truck to get it, and I go back to my father. I said, "I can't get out," because Bobby Bell, he was a deputy. I should have called his name, I guess, but he was a long time ago. But anyway, he was a deputy, and I said, "Bobby's parked behind me." Well, Bobby said, "Take my car." So I was only 15 years old. I took the deputy car, went on up to the store and got it, and I remember going in there, and the other boys around there and said, "What are you doing in that car?" I said, "I had to come get a bag of lime." So I went on back, but that was just, that was the way it was back then.
Things were different.
Yeah, that's the way it was. That's the way it was in the day.
Oh, man. That's funny.
But another thing I remember, too, about one of the best days of my life, I reckon it was, I was at school, and Mom and Daddy come to the school, and back there them days, your parents didn't come to the school and if something was really bad, they didn't do like they do nowadays. They stay there now.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yep.
But anyway, they come there, and she come knocked on the door and asked the teacher, said his father wants to see him, he's out in the car. So we come out to the car, and I go beside the door, window where he was driving. And I said, "Dad, what's the matter?" Because I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
He said, "Nothing's the matter." He said, "How you like your car?" I said, "What kind of car?" He said, that white Ford right there, that 56 Ford. I said, "It's my car?" He said, "Yeah." It was fine. See, I worked for Daddy. I always worked. I even couldn't even play basketball because I had to work to the fish house. And I always worked, and I didn't get paid, but I was just like, but I worked in the store, I always worked. But anyway, he said, "It's your car." He said, "We bought it for you." So I stayed home the next day and went to Vanceboro. That's where he got it from. And I went there, and I was out in the car lot walking around looking, and he was inside doing the paperwork. And when he came back out, I said, the guy named the place that owned it was Whitford. And when he came back out, I said, "Daddy, I don't want that car." He said, "What do you mean you don't want that car?"
He had done the paperwork.
He'd done the paperwork, getting ready to go. He said, "What do you mean you don't want her?" You wanted her yesterday. I said, I want that black one.
Was it just like it?
It's just like it, black. And he said, Daddy told me, he said, we just got through doing the paperwork, right? We can't, and the guy spoke up. He said, yes, I can. He said, well, go in there and change them. So he goes in there and changes everything. I come back home in the black 56 boys. But that's the way Daddy was. I mean, he didn't,
but he was fine, didn't get out of frame.
If that's the one you'd rather have, we'll get it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was the only one as a junior in school and a senior that had a car.
Mm-hmm.
No other student that had a car. That I'm pretty sure they didn't. I know they didn't have a car. So I was my car was popular.
Your car was popular.
Car was
I love how you said that.
Kind of popular, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time too when I was going to go. It was in between the junior and the senior year. I went. My father ran a trawler for Clayton Fulcher at that time, a big trawler, and I went shrimping with him that whole summer in Pamlico Sound. Mm-hmm. I did not like it very good, really, because I wanted to be. It was summertime. You're supposed to be out playing, but anyway, I worked the whole summer with him. I did enjoy that, and I enjoyed some parts of it, but some parts I didn't. But one thing that I go back to, my father likely got hurt real bad. He could have got killed, and I never forgot it. He got a grind one time right off of Cedar Island Beach, and he couldn't get off, and two of Clayton Fulcher's big trawlers come there and hooked the line on him and tried to pull him off. Well, the line that would come from the steel cable that went to the net, he run that all the way from the back of the boat to the front of the boat, and then to the other boats got a hold of it and started pulling. Well, my father was in the cabin, and he was standing there with his head kind of out the cabin, just looking around. Well, that cable was down to the bottom where it was tight, pulling tight, and something broke his sleep, and he went up and hit him in the chin, and the only thing saved him was his head. He went in the door instead of going out.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was not a very good time. But
that didn't feel good.
And so I didn't really enjoy that summer, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you worked all the summer.
Yeah. I remember one other, have I said enough yet?
No, we're enjoying this.
I remember one year that means my father, I went time with him for some reason, went up to Moorhead, and we come back. And there where the port is, there where Davis Oil is, Parker Ford, that's where he had the car company at. And my father he loved cars. My father always had a nice car. And he pulled in there and we went in and looked inside. And in the show window was a white Falcon. First year they had made them had just come out on the market. And I remember she was red inside with leather seats, bucket seats. And we looked at her and everything, and back ready down, he started talking. Looked like I liked her, Mm-hmm. So he started talking after go. I said how much she was and all that stuff. And the man told him, said, we can't sell you that one. He said, well, why not? Why can't you sell it? And another salesman heard him and said, well, we got to have 5 sales. We got to leave her in the show window. We got to have 5 sales. And the man in the back there said, well, he had the 5th one. That's the 5th one. It's already sold for. So I come home with the car that was in the show window, and that was, I don't know where I come home with that
oh my
Falcon.
goodness.
She was a pretty little Falcon,
So you didn't get paid, but you kind of did get paid.
I kind of did get paid. Yeah. So
along the way, had to work hard for it though.
But that was so now that was one of the, that's just the way my daddy was, and he wasn't because he was rich.
Yeah.
Somebody's still paying for.
He had good credit.
He had good credit. And there was a time he almost lost the store, but people had the best stuff. Anyway, that's another story. That time. One of the things I do, I just wish that I took more time when I was growing up and talked to my father about him growing up. I didn't have no grandfather. Both of them had passed away, and I had one grandmama. And I also wish that I had talked with her, because I would go by her house every day, swim in something, holler at her, and hey, and I had time. I could stop and just talk to her about the things that she did when she was growing up, or the things my granddaddy did. Yeah. But anyway, I remember one time I went by her, and she stopped me. It was hot, real hot. She stopped me and said, "Come here a minute." I said, "I got to go." She said, "Come here a minute." She said, "Standing right there." She went inside and come back with one of Granddaddy's Sunday cat hats. Stuck it, put it on my head. Said, "Don't you take that off of your head. You're going to have a heat stroke." Sure.
And that was Maddie.
That was Maddie, yeah. Yeah. I'll just tell you this. This is my grandma right now, but I just say that a little bit. But anyway, my grandma, I was going to spend a night with her one night. I don't know how she talked me into that. Anyway, I was going to spend a night with her. And we were sitting there, and for some reason, back there they would say, if they had heartburn or they had anything, she said, "I'm a dying." Well, it didn't hit me just right. And we lived across the road over there, and I told her, I said, "I'll be right back." She said, "Where you going?" I said, "Got to run home and get something. Got to run home, be right back." Well, I ran home and got something. I got Mama. We went back down there. And
did you tell Grandmama she was dying?
Yeah,
I
thought she was dying. Grandmama was dying. And she came down there, and she was sitting, I remember she was sitting in a chair laughing. And we went in, and my Mama said, "Wayne said you were dying." And she was laughing. She just was laughing, She said, "No, I just had a heartburn or something." I didn't stay with her, no.
Did you even stay with her that night?
I don't know if I did or not. Can't remember that part. I don't remember that part.
That's
I remember one other time, how she gave me a BC. I told her I had a headache. And she gave me a BC powder with nothing to drink. I put that powder in my mouth. I said, "Grandma, what am I supposed to do?" She got me a glass of water, and they're not very good with water, either.
It probably foamed right up.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my grandmama.
I bet your head quit hurting. You forgot about it.
But I wish we did have time to. And anybody out there that's listening to this, if you've got a grandfather or grandmother or your mama and daddy, take time to sit down and talk to them and ask them what they did or some of the stories that they had when they were growing up. Because you miss out a lot if you don't do that. And the only way you're going to get it, you're going to have to sit down and ask them about it and let them tell you.
Yeah.
Because I know that my mama went to college. And back in the 30s.
Wow.
And I knew she went to college, but I didn't know until she had passed away that she played tennis in college.
Wow.
I'd love for her to tell me about playing tennis in college.
Yes.
Little things, but once they go on, you can't get that. That's one of the things I wish I had done more of. Yeah. I don't think you got to worry about it. Because you've been bothering me since you were born.
I have been bothering you since you were born. That's right.
Yeah.
But I know a lot about you, and that's good.
Yeah. Well, I love my dad, and he loved me. I know he loved me. So, anyway, there's one little other thing I'll finish up here with, because I reckon she's getting tired.
No, I'm not tired, and I bet they're listening, enjoying it too.
On October the 6th, 1966, at 4:44, I become a father. That's when Dwayna was born, my oldest girl. She was born, beautiful girl, beautiful baby. I would have people with talk or Atlanta and to see them up the street, and they said, "We got to come by there and see that beautiful little girl. We hear so much about her, And I remember one time when I was in the Coast Guard, I was coming in to Wilmington, and I was on a cuddle, McCullough, and Atlanta had brought her there with me. She wasn't real old, but she had her dressed up real good, real fancy, and a bunch of families was on the dock. And we were on the boat, lined up on the side of the boat. And Lana could see me, and she'd point, and I knew that, and she would just wave just hard like she saw me,
Oh.
Yeah, that was one of the times.
Oh.
And then later on, when I was in the Coast Guard on the same boat, I was in the North Atlantic. And a radio man told me to call down and told me to come up to where he was, a radio place up on the quarterdeck. Anyway, I went up there and he said, "I've got a message on here for you." He said, "You got another little girl baby." It was to me, Tanya, my second one was born. That's where I was at out there. And Tanya, I don't know a whole lot about her because she was so quiet. She played with her sisters and they got along. They grew up so fast together. And later another little girl come. Father again, that one was Stacy. I don't know about her. I'm not going to say a whole lot about her because I don't know that much about her really. Lana always took care of the first two girls. And she told me that Stacy, she's yours. Stacy was mine, and she was right. Walking, talking, she was mine, and hasn't stopped. I love to hear her so much, and some of the things I've told her wasn't that great, too. But I'm proud to be her father, and she's something special. I will tell you, this is that. I'm not going to quit now. This is the last thing. This is something about Stacy. I won't tell you about this about the time we was going to our camp over to the banks. Yeah. And it was it was real late, and we had our boat packed up, everything, and was pulling into the shore to get out. And this little gal, Stacy, said, I left my blanket, and started crying. I left my blanket. And I said, well, I got to go back and get that blanket tonight, or I got to come up with some idea. So I told her, I went over to her and took her. I said, look, Stacy, I'll give you my T-shirt. You can sleep in my T-shirt tonight, and I'll get you a blanket tomorrow. So she did. She took my T-shirt. I don't think she ever used that blanket again.
I did.
And I think she still got the T-shirt.
I do.
And she does still got the T-shirt.
I do.
Yeah. And I know I did what I did and some of the things I just told you about. But Lana, their mama, was the one that needs to be thanked and praised for. She did 10 times the work that I did, because I was like working or this and that, but she was with them all the time. She took them to the ball games when I would go home from work and get in the boat to go fishing or something, and then she would be to the ball games with them. And she spent a lot more time than I did, and I'm sorry that happened that way. But anyway, I thank her for helping us, and I thank you for my family, and that's about it.
That was so good.
That was not worth it.
Thank you so much for joining us again.
Yeah.
And you're probably not off the hook. We'll get you again sometime in the future about
that was it. I've run dry. I know nothing else about nothing.
But I hope that you know how much I'm crying. I can't help it. How much your 3 girls love you. Yeah. Well, 4 girls, because Mama thinks I love you too.
Yeah.
But Dwayna, Tanya, and me, we're blessed.
I don't know. You ain't got much.
Well, we love you, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yeah. And don't forget, talk to your mamas and your fathers and find out how they grew up, because it's something that will be special to you later on.
Yes, it will. Thank you so much.
Love you.
Love you.
As we close today's episode, my heart is full, sitting with my dad and hearing him speak about his father. The man who laid the foundation for so much of who I am was a reminder of how deeply legacy runs through our veins. But more than that, it reminded me of how incredibly special my dad is. His quick wit, his quiet strength, and his unwavering willingness to do anything for the people he loves. That's what has built the world I know. A world full of love, of laughter, and of life because of him. Dad, thank you for being a light, a constant, and a force of good in our family. Mom, Dwayna, Tanya, and I have been given so much by you, so much more than memories. You've given us a way of living. Happy Father's Day. We love you. Until next time, thanks for joining us. To the Landing. Thank you again for joining us to The Landing. This podcast is brought to you by the Core Sound Waterfowl Museum and Heritage Center. I am your host, Stacy Davis Baisden, and today's podcast was produced by April Davidson. Tune in next week as we continue learning, sharing, and remembering together. If you'd like to hear more, check out our previous episodes where you get your podcasts. Until then, stay safe and be kind.